My name is Dr. Matthew Skinner and I'm a paleoanthropologist from the University of Kent. To celebrate the launch of Extant Season 2 on Sci-Fi, the channel challenged me to think about how the human body might evolve to survive in 3 different habitat scenarios. The first scenario relates to global warming. We imagine that the ice caps are melting, we see a drastic rise in sea levels, and humans are forced to live in an underwater community. And so what we might see is changes to our body which help us to swim better. For example, we might see a lengthening of our fingers. This might cause us to evolve webbed fingers and toes. Another scenario we considered was the colonization of another planet. Something that's central to our survival is food. We might have to take our food in liquid form or in pill form. This would relax the selective pressures on our mouths, and we might see that our jaws get very small and our teeth reduce in size, and we might even have some teeth disappear. Another scenario we looked at was having to survive a second ice age. One of the things that's critical to our body's function is the absorbance of vitamin D from the sun's light. In order to increase our ability to absorb vitamin D, we might see our skin become paler, our hair become lighter, but in order to stay warm, we might see an overall increase in hair on our bodies. No matter what scenario we might find ourselves in the future, whether it's a water world, a second ice age, or colonizing another planet, humans will always try to avoid extinction. Ultimately, it's a fight for survival.
Hey everybody, from watching that video, we now know that humans are going to look a little bit different in the future because evolution is a fact, quote unquote, and so we know that things are evolving. And so let's take a look at what they said in this video, another video, and see if this would really support the molecules to man sense of evolution. Now, the first thing that they talked about is that in the future, if evolution happens, as they say that it will, we could expect to find us living in a water world where we've got webbed hands and webbed feet. Just because our descendants are going to have webbed hands and webbed feet, does that mean that a worm turned into us given enough time and right circumstances? Absolutely not. I mean, if you think about it, we've got people that have webbed hands and webbed feet right now. And no, that picture isn't true. That's actually photoshopped. But there are people that do have extra skin in between fingers. And typically this is a deformation where the 2 fingers are fused together. And the same thing goes for the toes. But okay, so you've got some extra skin in there. That doesn't mean anything about given enough time, a worm could turn into us. So don't fall for that. Now, another thing that they brought up, in the future, we're going to have to eat through straws and this sort of a thing. So our chin is going to get a whole lot smaller and our teeth get a whole lot smaller. So there you go. That means evolution is a fact. And that means nothing. I mean, so what? Our ancestors had stronger jaws and now we're getting weaker jaws because our food is changing. Well, they had jaws, we got jaws, and descendants are going to have jaws, and the same with the teeth. That is not evidence that something turned into another thing. There was another piece that they showed though that was, if it gets colder, we get into an ice age, then we're going to get paler skin and bigger bodies and a lot more hair on our bodies. So there you go, Carl. Boy, if that's what we're going to look like in the future, then that means that we must have come from an ape in the past because, what? Look, hair on the body, ancestors had hair on the body, we got hair on the body, and so what? People in the future have hair on the body. Maybe they will have more, but that doesn't mean anything because a really good friend of mine was a guy that wrestled as George the Animal Steel. And yeah, he had a lot of hair on his body, but he wasn't dumb by any stretch of the imagination. He was a football coach, a high school teacher for years, so he was an extremely intelligent man, and just because he had hair on his body, that doesn't mean anything. So don't be deceived by that stuff. There's another video that I ran across, so let's take a listen to what they had to say.
It's conceivable that we will find a way to isolate small populations in potentially stressful environments, like in space. Send up ships of colonists to a world with less oxygen or lower gravity or one that's covered in ice, and you've got yourself all the ingredients for major physical change. Dealing with a thin atmosphere could lead to humans with red blood cells that can stuff way more oxygen in, like people who live in the Andes today, or who breathe much faster than we do and have wider blood vessels like the modern Tibetans. If gravity was lower, like on Mars or the Moon, humans could grow taller with longer arms and legs and would likely develop new ways of getting around, and that would change the structure of the muscles in their bodies. And on an ice world, we could see the return of insulating body hair and fat, and even a change in our body clocks to encourage hibernation through the coldest times.
So here we go. Boy, have we got a lot of things going on here. I mean, now we know that we came from a worm because in the future, it's very possible that if we were in a low oxygen atmosphere, that our red blood cells could change to the point that they could absorb more oxygen. And that proves what? I mean, matter of fact, did you hear what he said? He said,
like people who live in the Andes today.
so people have blood cells that can absorb more oxygen than others, and so what? It's just a trait. That's okay. That's a good thing. But we might start breathing faster in that low oxygen and have wider blood vessels. And so, boy, that proves that evolution's a fact and that a worm could eventually turn into us. No, because did you hear what he said about the breathing faster and the blood vessels? That it's
like the modern Tibetans.
So these are features that we see today and might become more widespread based on the climate, which, okay, I can accept that. But there's more. Let's take a listen.
We could see the return of insulating body hair and fat, and even a change in our body clocks to encourage hibernation through the coldest times.
Yes, we could get bigger and hairier. Well, we've already talked about the hairy thing and getting bigger. Just doesn't support the fact that one thing could turn into another thing. But he's got more.
And we're gradually developing resistances to diseases like malaria and HIV.
This is the golden nugget right here. This is the thing that is showing that we can evolve because we are evolving resistance to diseases. The same way that, and boy, you're going to see this if you have a child in high school going through biology, mosquitoes are evolving resistance to pesticides. And so it's the same process, the mosquito supposedly evolving resistance and us evolving resistance. So let me deal with the mosquitoes thing. Do mosquitoes evolve? Well, here's the reality. In our world today, there are mosquitoes that have a resistance to a certain pesticide and those that don't have a resistance to a certain pesticide. And they breed amongst each other. And so we've got this big band of mosquitoes and we don't like mosquitoes. So what do? We come along and we spray them with our pesticide. And what happens when we spray them with our pesticide? Well, we kill them all off, right? No, we don't. What we do is we kill off a number of them. And the ones that we kill primarily would be the ones that don't have the resistance to the pesticide. So you still have some mosquitoes left. What's going to happen? Over time, the mosquitoes are going to breed. Now, what's going to happen with the new offspring? Well, they're going to have that information to be able to resist the pesticide. So now we've got a bunch of mosquitoes again. We come back, we spray again. Are we going to kill off as many mosquitoes as we did the last time? No, because more of the resistance is in that population. I mean, you can spray mosquitoes to the point where, boy, you can get them and you can spray them with a pesticide and they're like, bring on lunch, bro. This is good stuff. It doesn't bother them. Did they evolve? No. What did you start with? You started with mosquitoes that had resistance and didn't have resistance. Over time, you kill off the ones that don't have the resistance, and the ones that do have it, procreate and pass that genetic information along. That's the same thing with us evolving, quote unquote, resistance to diseases, malaria and HIV. You don't even want to go into the malaria with sickle cell anemia. That's way too deep. We don't want to go there. But it's not a good thing, man, to have sickle cell. You don't die from malaria. You die from something even uglier. So this is not a process by which a worm can grow legs and turn into us over time. Yes, we see changes within species and having some information get passed along to the next generation because of climate and those types of things. But guys, don't be deceived. That is not going to mean you can get something from nothing to turn into us given enough time. So the question of what are we going to look like in the future? Well, I look at what Genesis 1 says. And Genesis 1 says, then God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. In verse 27, God says, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. So what are we going to look like? Well, here's what I pray that we look like. In the future, we have that new body, that body that God wanted for us in the very beginning that he gave us, but has been impacted by sin and the destruction that we see in the world around us because we destroyed it. God gave us what he wanted. We have that perfect body in a place called heaven where we're going to spend eternity with him. And I pray that you're going to be there. This changing over time, worm to us thing, don't fall for that mess. You are created in the image of God. You are fearfully, wonderfully made. And your offspring might be bigger, shorter, hairier, not as hairier, lighter, darker. But guess what? They're still human and they're created in the image of God. So love them and love God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength. Stay bold.